This is an historic day for our nation. CBS News projects that former President Donald Trump has won this election and will be president once again. At this hour, our projections have him with 276 electoral college votes, more than the 270 that he needed.
Let's take a look at the battleground states, starting in North Carolina. CBS News projects Trump has won there. CBS News also projects he won the state of Georgia, one of the multiple states he lost back in 2020, which he now won in 2024. That includes the crucial state of Pennsylvania, which was a huge prize with its 19 electoral votes. Michigan, another battleground state, is still considered a toss-up. CBS News projects Trump has, however, won the state of Wisconsin, and that put him across the finish line. At this hour, the state of Arizona is still a toss-up, too close to call, but Nevada appears to be leaning towards the former president.
All right, to help us break down all of it and how it went down, we've got our elections and surveys director, Anthony Salvanto. Now, Anthony, Donald Trump didn't just do well in the battleground states. He did well everywhere in places where Kamala was supposed to hold strong.
Yeah, in fact, let me tell you a national story. I'm going to show you some states we don't talk about a whole lot, right? I'm going to show you New York. Now, okay, Kamala Harris won that, but compare that to 2020. She didn't do as well as Joe Biden, okay? Donald Trump did better than he did in 2020. Kind of same story. I'll show you Virginia, all right? A lot of people point to this as maybe that would be a place Donald Trump would pick up or show some more strength. In fact, Harris underperformed Biden. Donald Trump did better than he did 4 years ago. And I'll show you one more just to kind of make the point.
Yeah.
Minnesota, right? Home state of the vice presidential nominee, right? For the Democrats, well, she just underperformed Joe Biden there, too. You get the idea. There were shifts toward Donald Trump all over the country. Not huge shifts, but just enough. Just enough that he could, tip that sequence of states. It was like, it's like running the table just by a little bit in state after state.
Yeah, and in his campaign, he was very confident, so he knew something that maybe a lot of us didn't.
He turned out a lot of lower propensity voters, people who came out to vote just for him.
That's right. All right. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right. Now let's go to Tony, who had a late night and an early morning. We appreciate your around-the-clock coverage in Florida. Tony, what's up?
Hey, buddy. Thank you very much, Nate. Good morning again. The sun did rise this morning. The world had kept on turning. And yes, Donald Trump is once again president-elect in these United States. I mentioned all of that, and I could mention more, because going into Election Day, most Trump supporters said that if Harris had been elected, they would be feeling scared right now, according to a CBS News poll. And an even greater number of Harris supporters said that they'd feel the same way. And when you think about it, it's no wonder when so many prominent Democrats had warned throughout this election cycle that democracy is on the line. While on the Trump side, we saw Elon Musk, no less, tweet, quote, "Very few Americans realize that if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election." And that's not even counting all the things that the candidates themselves have said about the threats to democracy. Now, look, we are, to be sure, an imperfect union, but we are a democracy, the world's oldest, in fact, and that was true yesterday. It is true today, and it'll be true tomorrow. I mention all that, though, because people should not be scared, but it's understandable if they're confused by one another. Caitlin Huey-Burns is here to follow up on what the Trump campaign has done to get this victory and what they plan to do now. People should not be frightened necessarily, but they do have anxiety because they're not sure what's going to happen next. Can you offer any clarity about the priorities of the Trump administration?
Well, the biggest priority that this administration to-be has said is on the issue of immigration, mass deportation. CBS has done a lot of reporting about what that would look like, how much that would cost the U.S. government, and what that would be like to implement, and the kind of fear that that could install in immigrant communities. But that has been a priority of this administration. The other issue, of course, that has hovered over all of this is the economy, right? This is a president-elect now who has talked about imposing tariffs essentially on everything. And so there are lots of questions about what that could do to the U.S. economy, what that could do to the consumer. But all of this speaks to the two issues that have fueled his support this whole time. This election has been, for Donald Trump, as much about immigration as anything else. Time and time again, every voter that we spoke to who was supporting Trump made mention of the border as an issue of security, but also, as Donald Trump would talk about it, as part of the fabric, in his words, of the country. And so that really speaks to kind of the cultural divides that we're seeing as well.
You know, I mentioned off the top, people should not be worried about democracy. Democracy will continue to exist, but you can't understand the fear when you talk about whether people will be able to remain in the country where they may have lived for years, even decades. People will be able to access the health care that they were able to access yesterday, or an administration, or a Supreme Court ruling ago. So it is a complex and layered issue here, but we are going to have to muddle through it.
And it's also important to note that Donald Trump could be assuming the presidency potentially with full control of government. Not only the Senate, which Republicans are poised to have won, but also perhaps the House. And also, because of that Supreme Court ruling recently on immunity, there are questions about the scope, or how he sees his scope of presidential power.
And then also the ability to appoint yet more federal judges who are sympathetic to what he would like to do with this country.